Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. In the meantime, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. I think it's going to be I'm not going to say an amazing year for absolutely everybody, but I think in comparison to the past few years that we have, that we're finding our footing now, that we're finally starting to feel a little bit better about where we live, the government, our families, our school systems. Wouldn't it be amazing if this year we could accomplish some great, big, amazing things as a community of the world instead of, coming in and saying, well, this tornado happened today and we're getting this bozo president or prime minister, that we're having this conflict with this country. There's so many good things going on in the world. And we've been talking a little bit about that this week. And I think, it's something that specifically is supposed to be stressed on a little bit, that we should be a little bit more optimistic. It is in that idea of what we think about, we realize. And I've been getting those lessons for myself, because I have dreams, I have goals, but at the same time, I am a realist. And, I know that a lot of these things that I would like to see manifest in my life will probably remain a dream in this lifetime. It's not going to stop me for putting in the reps, right? Because it is in my determination that I'm going to do better by myself than what I have done in this lifetime. And I would like to think, better than what other stewards of those other parts of me have been able to do. There is no blame. It is evolution. We all move at a different pace. We all have different experiences, different stories, different obstacles, different souls that are in our relations, in our vicinity that we move with. And we have to remember, that when we move a certain way, that those other humans and human souls that are in our lives, that touch base with us, are affected by that. My family is no different in that. I have my sisters, they have been everything for me my entire life. They have been people that I've admired, right? They have been people that I have, what's the word? That I base my own life on, to, because we aspire in the people that we admire. And that is a truth. And I did admire, and I do admire my sisters. But at the same time, right, we sometimes find ourselves in friendly competition, or sometimes it is in that managing to stay on top of the pile. We'll just put it that way, that we strive. And sometimes when we strive to stay on top of the pile, we're doing that on the shoulders of others. Sometimes with them knowing and with their full permission, but lots of times in not knowing, right? Because sometimes we think that's what we deserve, right? We think that's what we're supposed to be doing. we think sometimes that we are the support system for others rather than really taking a look at our own lives and being the support system for our lives. If you're anything like me, you've taken in other people's perspectives of yourself. You have probably taken to heart other people's opinions of yourself. Hello, Eugene. Happy New Year, dear. Thank you so much for coming in to my live show on New Year's Day. I so appreciate it. It's been kind of a quiet New Year's for me for the past 24 hours. I've pretty much been with myself and I've been in deep, right? It's the new year. And it's part of the reason why I try to get on top of that new year. My fiscal end of year is at the end of September when I come home from my trip. Because I know if I don't have goals and dreams and ambitions, a short list of things that I want to accomplish, that in coming back from that trip that I do in September, I have a little bit of a crash. It happens every year because that trip I take in September, I put so much into it. I do. I put my goals into it. I put my dreams into it. I put almost every single penny I put into it. I put all my time and thoughts and worries and stresses because, these trips that I take in September, they cost a pretty penny. I did it fairly inexpensively this year. Grateful that I have sisters who cared about me and made sure that I got my trip in because, it has been, right, a mix. And if I had come home at the end of September and I didn't have those goals set, I would have been bummed. I would have been heartbroken and probably been pretty disillusioned. It's kind of uh, in that idea of making sure that we have something to look forward to at all times. And this is why I make my fiscal year by choice at the end of September. So when the new year does come, right, I've already been working on my goals, right? Cindy's gotten her dental done. I'm so happy that that is done, and I'm so pleased with the work that was done. And hopefully, that's the last time I ever have to go to the dentist in my entire life. I'm not a big fan of dentists, but I did it because I had to, right? This is taking care of myself, not leaving myself to the wayside, right? Not stepping on my own shoulders to get my goals and dreams all sorted out, right? And then leave myself toothless or full of cavities or not take care of my bills. We talked about this yesterday. And that state that it puts us in, right? I understand if I can stay on top of that pile a little bit, I'll be able to manage, but I refuse to stand on top of a pile if it meant that somebody else is going to suffer because of it, right? I'm not standing on other people's shoulders, on other people's heads to make it to my destination, right? To be able to feel good about myself, right? I have to make sure that I stay optimistic and I have to stay on top of those things that are in my life or not in my life, meaning I have to achieve them, right? I have to work towards them because otherwise I'm going to be in a negative state, right? I'm going to feel bad about it. Today was a pretty heavy day for me because, right, my goals, my dreams, I'm checking off things on my list, but at the same time, I'm questioning myself. I'm questioning my goals, my dreams, the the groups that I want to move with. and how I want to move, how I want to contribute. Yes, I come in here and, right, I contribute a little bit, but I'm not getting a gazillion people. My target audience is, I believe, not very large, right? And I'm not very large in this moment with the authority in my presence and in my voice, right? In that influence, right? That influence that I want to be able to come into and help everybody in a way that will make it so that their life isn't in that state of hairy, scary, that everybody can feel comfortable about making movement for themselves, but be able to do that for themselves by keeping themselves the highlight, keeping themselves the priority, and not using, and that's the thing, not using others as the step stool, right? Not to trample over others in that stampede of where we want to go in life, right? This is something that is important for me, but I think more important for those other parts of me, because Cindy just gets this life, right? And I'm going to do the best that I can in that. But at the same time, I'm 64 years old, right? Stepping my foot into a pool that maybe I've not had much experience in wading into, right? But at the same time, I'm going to do my very best in that catch up. And I'm going to pay attention to the needs of myself, my audience, right? Because I have to represent here. And it is detrimental that I do this in a way that, in the things that I don't understand, that I not only don't lead myself astray in what I'm doing, but more importantly, that I don't let anybody else go astray in these conversations that I have. And that would also be on me. That would, right? I have enough karma of my own, right? I don't want to hold the karma of others, but I will if I've left anybody behind, if I've led anybody astray, if I've caused anybody any stoppage in their own movement, right? I would love an opportunity, in the very least, to explain, to resolve, to make up. And if anybody ever had a discrepancy, right, I would be enthralled. I would be much grateful if you got a hold of me, right? We can have a conversation. We could use my Instagram platform if you wanted to, right? You could even message me and we could have a Zoom call in that. But it is in my intent that I do this right, because I think for most part of my life, I did not do it right. And I think for the life that I have, yes, there will be residue. And because I come from two extremes of two different spectrums, right, that I understand that I'm not going to rub everybody perfectly, right? That in some of my understandings, some of my beliefs, some of my truths, that they won't be other people's truths. But the idea is that I'm creating the best human being that I possibly can be. And I am picking up the most amazing lessons in that. And yes, those lessons involve deeper lessons. That's part of, right? You gotta get all that puke out of you, all those misunderstandings, all those grievances, right? And have a better, well, I want to have the truth for me. I don't want to have a better truth. I don't want to have anybody else's truth. I want a truth for myself. And that means going slow. And that might mean, right, that this is it. That, what I bring to my brand and to my channel possibly is just for me, or possibly it's for somebody in the future. And maybe that future is generations away, thousands of generations away. But if that's the case, I am so grateful, right? That I had the sense to start my YouTube channel, that I had the sense to pick the topics for myself that would serve me in this moment and possibly serve those other parts of me who might just come back and find this content thousands of generations from now. It's a possibility, you guys, right? But that's what it is only a possibility. It's not a fact. It's not something that I'm going to say, I 100% guarantee that this is the way it is, right? Because it is a perspective, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands of different perspectives out there, right? But this is what I feel strongly about for myself. And that's why I say all the time, right? That I'm going to come in and I'm just going to share. And maybe, right? It'll only be one or two, three people, right? That in this lifetime of mine, that I might make that connection where somebody else might see that truth. And if it happened in my lifetime and I got whiff of that, oh, please, again, message me, right? Because that's food for me. That's the the it is the food. It's what makes me want to come back. It's that confirmation that sometimes, because I say I can't be 100%, right, certain, that sometimes it is in that I second that we do open ourselves up for deeper lessons, better understandings, different perspectives, even, or even in that cross checking, right? In that final edit, that we can be more precise, we could be more pinpointing in the specifics of what we want to move in our own lives with, and how we want to move with others, right? This week the conversations have been deep, but again, it's different because New Year's comes every year, and I have been in this for years and years and years now, and I haven't felt this way about New Year's before. This year, right? I'm really cross checking everything, and especially I'm cross checking in my emotions, right? In my understandings. And I find that curious, right? And at the same time, like I said, it's important for each one of us to discern for ourselves what is a truth and what isn't a truth, because we're all different. We're all unique. We've all grown up with different ideas, different political ideas, different religious ideas, right? Different intellectual ideas, cultural ideas. Oh, but the biggie, you guys, those traditional ideas that come directly from our immediate vicinity, meaning friends, family, coworkers, right? And we have to spend as much time as spectators as we do as participants. And this is something that in this process I've learned to do. I have been a spectator for the most part of my life. Being part of the YouTube creator, it has allowed me to be a participant in life. And because I'm allowing myself to be a participant, I want to be a good participant, right? I want to be the best that I can be as that participant. And that's studying, that's learning from others, that's practical lessons, that is persistent consistency and practicing and searching out, right? Answers in where we might feel that we are not as strong as others in. It's not a contest. And most definitely, we're not all supposed to be competing each other in strengths. I wouldn't even want to, right? But sometimes in friendly competition, that we can find um, runners, right? That we can find partnerships in walking the path together, or right, running the path together if it is something physical. Okay, you guys, I don't know, as I usually say, I don't know where that was coming from, but it is coming from the new year that we're moving into. And a new year, that word new is, it's unfamiliar. We have no idea what this next year has in store for us. Excuse me, just had dinner. I have to have my dinner before 8 o'clock, because after 8 o'clock I'm not allowed to eat anything. It's just something I'm practicing, and I feel good about it, right? Um, so it is in the new year that I'm looking for new directions, new understandings, new choices in what I wanna learn, and a little bit of movement in that rooting in my life. And when I say rooting in my life, that means stability in my life in all aspects, right? Emotionally, mentally, physically, financially, right? And I didn't want to categorize it, but I'm going to have to say spiritually in my life, right? I am a realist, and I've been moving with mindset and my core values. But when it comes to religious ideas and spiritual ideas, there really hasn't been a big push in that, except in, well, I'm going to say, I'm taking in the lessons, but I'm taking in those lessons because of what I want to bring to the table. So I'm going to have to say, like, sitting here, it just doesn't make sense for me to say that I'm not moving spiritually, because I am. I wouldn't have been in the state that I was today if I wasn't, right? And but for each one of us, it is in these nuances, these differences that we have that is going to direct our life, to make our life a little bit different from each other. But the idea is that even if we are different, if we think differently, if we feel differently, right? Even if we move differently, live differently, understand differently, that we would be able to still, because we're moving with common values, right? And I was thinking about values today. How can we as a global have common values? Not like to say laws, this is a law, you're going to prison if you lie, not like that, right? But to be able to have values so that in those relationships we can recognize if somebody is not in good sportsmanship, working with others in those values, so that we would have a better idea of who we should hang out with, right? You're moving with values. That doesn't necessarily mean, right, that somebody with those values is an amazing person, but we can better have an opportunity to feel people out if we don't have to worry about, right, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not commit adultery, like whatever that common block of values are that we all live by. I just use those because I only know the 10 Commandments, and I'm not even sure if I can read off the 10 Commandments, right? But I just used that as an example, right? Because growing up, that was one part of my upbringing, because my mother loved Jesus, right? But my father, he was off in the stars. My dad was extremely spiritual, and we are who we surround ourselves with, and I was my father's daughter. So I move in the lessons that my father got, possibly. I don't know, because my father and I never had these discussions. He never passed those lessons down the line to us. It was only in my recognition when I woke up to the ideas that I recognized my father. I recognized who my father was. And I lived with my father for 20 years. I knew him. He was my best friend. He was my saving grace. He was my bodyguard, right? He was everything to me. And I was thinking here before I went to live, and I said, what did my dad teach me? In right, growing up, my dad was away quite a bit, but he still was my father. And as a father, he would have taught me things. He taught me how to drive. My father, I had a hard time finding things that my dad taught me. But one thing my dad taught me was how to recognize him, right? Because he led by example, and I recognized him immediately when I woke up to some of these ideas, right? And so that is a beautiful gift to myself, and I am grateful that in my codependency that I paid attention. And even though we didn't have any discussions, none, not one discussion on spirituality. As close as we got was hypnotism. My dad loved the hypnotists. He really did. He went to all of them. And at the time in the 70s, there were some really big hypnotists out there, because there was that idea of quit smoking by hypnotism. And I think that's what hooked my dad onto hypnotism, is because my dad was a 2-pack a day smoker. his entire life, right up to the day he died. And in the end, that's what took him down. But I think it was because he wanted to quit smoking that he got introduced to the hypnotist, and then he just got hooked on that. And he did take me to see these hypnotists whenever he went. I was always his partner in that, but he never taught me anything in that, right? So he led by example, and his quotes that he brought his family up in, he loved quotes, right? These were the tidbits and the breadcrumbs that I picked up along the way, that, when I bumped into people that were like him, I recognized immediately. And after that, it wasn't too hard, right? You put it together. My dad meditated twice a day. He ate super healthy, but he ate super healthy because I thought because of his bad heart, right? But there were so many aspects of my dad, his favorite thought leaders out there, his idea in his bookcase of books, right? Things that I didn't pay attention to because at that time I wasn't woke up to any of these ideas. I didn't have an interest in Carl Sagan or Bob Proctor, or right, or uh Hubbard. It's Scientology, I think, right? And but his intellect and everything about my father, when I woke up, it was instant, and I recognized, right, that I was my father's daughter more than I thought that I was my father's daughter. But I was clueless. If I hadn't bumped into others, I would have probably never woken up to any of these ideas, right? That I would have never had a shot, that I would have still been under the thumb of narcissists, that I wouldn't have had a chance in hell, and whatever I was supposed to wake up to wouldn't have wouldn't have happened. And that's not to say it still might not happen, because I woke up to some of these ideas so late, and I'm not sure whether there was an opportunity for me to show up a little bit earlier than I did. But I am treading water, right? And I'm doing the best that I can, right? As fast as I can, and as hard as I can. And if you've been with me for any length of time, I know you know, right? I know you know. And so I'm not changing in anything that I'm doing, because in the end, right, I believe that I'm serving myself. And in that idea, if I'm serving myself, that I might possibly be serving others out there by doing that, right? I know we're not supposed to be self-serving, right? And I come in here, and everything that I stumble across that I think that has value, that I 100% feel that it's a truth, right? I will share that. Even in my misgivings, right? I'm willing to butt heads with myself. And I expect at some point I will butt heads with myself. I've done it before. I will do it again. But I think that I will come out on the other end, on the right side, rather than being influenced or manipulated to come out the other end, or not even enter at all. Okay, you guys, That's all I'm going to say about that. Holy moly. Now you can see what I've been doing on New Year's Day and New Year's Eve, right? I was in the midst. I would really like to make some movement this year, but that's going to be in my actions, right? And that is going to be in that movement that I make for myself. And, I'm optimistic that if I can do it, right, it's quite possible that others can do it, right? And if I do it, I tell you, right, I'll be right here to open the door for everybody else. Okay, you guys, let's get into it, right? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Wasn't it strange, you guys? The past 2 days, we had that word freedom 2 days in a row. I've been in it myself, and I think that's part of me, right? Busting out of the bubble. Let me out. Let me out. Let's make some movement, right? Give me that freedom. I'm ready to go. But that's right. You never want to rush it. You never want to move in a way. You don't want to get into a game or get yourself into a situation when you're not ready, right? Because if you're not ready, oh my goodness, you might be put in your place awfully fast. You better be pretty stable, pretty rooted. This is what I'm thinking to myself. Okay, you guys, we're going to end it right there. If you don't know, 54 powerful words, they're just powerful words. And we just grab one and we go into it. It's the first thing that comes to my mind. That's what we go with. We start there. Where it moves to after that, I don't know. Sometimes it's a couple of minutes. Sometimes it's a half an hour. Sometimes I don't know. Okay, you guys, here we go. Ooh, we've had this card recently too, right? And this card, I love this card. Um, Especially, I was the first thing that came to my mind were the fireworks. They're the legislative buildings, our parliaments, right, are about, oh, I can see the building from here. It's a pretty huge, big stone block building, but it's about a half a mile from here. And last night they were doing the fireworks. The whole sky was just lit up, and they put on a really, really good show. Probably a very expensive show, too, because those lights went on for probably a good 15, 20 minutes, and they were huge and pretty magnificent. And I just sat here just like I enjoyed it so much. This word wonder, wonder is the majesty of what's being presented, and that's what was going on. Those fireworks were being presented and they were so majestic. And for 15 minutes, I was like, my jaw was like this. They did such an magnificent job. But you guys also know, because I've come across this word a few times, I use this word, is the majesty of what's being presented in my trips that I go into in September when I go off on the road and I get to do a road trip and I get to drive along the road and see beautiful lakes and mountains and wildlife and colored foliage, and it's just new cities, right? And I just absolutely immerse myself in that. And it's wondrous, right? And it's something I live for every year. And I haven't missed one in decades now, right? These trips that I do them once a year, right? It's what I can afford, but it's a gift I prioritize to myself, right? So that I can have those moments of wonder that I can have, because wonder is joy, isn't it? Right? When we find wondrous things, there's a sense of joy. There's a sense of majesty about it, the majestics of it, the color of it, the sound of it, the feel of it. The wonder is the feel, right? And sometimes that can motivate us, right? Sometimes it can, right? When you see something so wondrous, you go to Circus Soleil and you go, wow, that's so amazing. And you're a 12-year-old little girl, right? That wondrous moment in Circus Soleil might inspire you that you'd want to be on a trapeze or to do acrobatics or to entertain in a crowd, right? It's these wonders that inspire us. I go to Ontario every single year. I have now, I think, for about almost 10 years now. I've been going to Ontario for these trips that I do every year because the wonder of my first trip got me. The beauty of the mountains that I hadn't seen since I was 18 years old. I'm from British Columbia. And the Rocky Mountains, oh my goodness, the beautiful mountains. Like, I know what wonder is. And I haven't been, well, I'm not going to say that because when I started my YouTube channel, I was out on the road for the exact same reason as the wonder of the beauty, the wonder of walking through farm fields, the wonder of walking through an abandoned building and thinking to myself of the families that lived in these houses, right? And the experiences there. And that brought joy to me. Now, I never looked at it, at this word in that way, wonder, because that is what wonder does. Wonder brings about a sense of joy. Wow, right? It is, right? Lots of times we look for others to entertain us, right? We follow along with what other people think is wondrous, and we find joy. We find joy in that, don't we? In being around people who are joyous in what they're doing. But to be able to find that wonder for ourselves, because each one of us are going to be triggered. This is a good one, you guys. Think to yourself the last time you felt that wonder in your life. Not, I wonder, but oh, right? The wonder of it all. Try and think of 2 or 3 of those. And that would probably show you a direction if you really wanted to move in a direction, right? Just like I keep going to Ontario because I just love the drives. I just love the beauty of that province. I love the majestic mountains and the lakes and the wildlife. And it brings me a sense of joy in something that makes me feel so right. And it does. And I never looked at this word before, wonder, in that way. But that's what it is. It brings joy into our life, even if it's only momentary, only if you're going to Circus Soleil, even if you're just going to a circus, right? Sometimes we find wonder when you go to a movie, into a movie theater, and you're getting a new Dolby sound, or you're getting new fancy chairs with buttons, and right, and it adds to the experience. That's true too. Wonder, right? That's the experience I'm searching out. Well, no, I'm searching out that connection with myself. But I think that it's the wonder that brings me joy, that puts me in the mindset of allowing, right? That closeness to myself. Because if I'm enjoying that, those other parts of me are enjoying that too. I would like to think that I'm bringing those other parts of me on an adventure, on a curious adventure, right? It's not fun sitting. Well, it is fun. For me, it's fun. It's my thing, right? Sitting here all day and taking in mindset lessons and listening to thought leaders and, right, connecting with Mother Nature when I can't in the moment connect with Mother Nature. In a choice, I could put on my coat, my pants, and my snow pants and my boots, and I could go out for a walk. But there are times when we prioritize. And in this moment, right, I feel that, right? The new year's here. Let's get going. Let's get started. What's 2026 going to spit up? I think it's going to spit up some wonder, right? Some wonder, some majesty in what's being presented. And I think, right, if we add joy to that word, wonder, we have something to look forward to, don't we, in 2026? Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer. Eugene, thank you for popping in, hanging out with me. As usual, I appreciate it so much. And thank you for the thumbs up too. When you guys come in, it's always appreciated. And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow.